In fighting games, a lot of characters use or take heavy inspiration from real martial arts. And today, I'm going to talk about some of these martial arts and the characters that use them. I'll be using the latest fighting games of the time: Tekken 8, Street Fighter 6, Dead or Alive 6, and Virtua Fighter 5 Final Showdown. I only have the base game, and in some cases I do have a DLC character if it came with the deal I got, but for the most part it's just base game characters. Also, I didn't include Mortal Kombat because it's a lot of mythical magicness and such, so I don't know that belongs in a martial art video. And for the same reason I didn't include some characters. Dalsim, for example, uses yoga and teleports. He blows fire and can stretch his body abnormally far, so that's the kind of character I'm not going to be discussing. Kuma is an actual bear, so also not the kind of character I would be discussing. Characters like that, not only will I not be talking about, but I'm only trying to talk about the real martial arts, which means any characters that are using only fictional martial arts I will also not be discussing. And by that, I don't mean the ones in our real world that could be bullshit. I won't be voicing my opinions on which martial arts I think are real and bullshit. So by fake martial arts, I mean ones that only exist within that game. So this will be a very surface level, quick summary of each martial art, and I promise all of them are more complex than the very little I'll be saying here. And with that being said, let's begin now. So up first we'll be talking about martial arts with an emphasis on striking. The first one is boxing. Boxing is both a martial art and a sport. It's about either knocking out your opponent or winning by points determined by judges. It has multiple rounds, multiple weight classes, and multiple sizes of gloves. Defense is either about taking the punches to the arms with your arms in front of you or dodging the punch. Offense only allows punches above the belt. Jabs are often used to either hurt a part of the body or to create an opening for a power punch, such as a hook or uppercut. And my favorite boxing movies are the Rocky and Creed films. Character-wise, we have Steve Fox from Tekken. Kickboxing could be described as boxing with kicking, but it's a little more complicated than that. Kickboxing also allows throwing knees as well, but not elbows. Clinching has a time limit of 3 seconds, and clinching is grabbing and holding on to your opponent. And Brian Fury from Tekken is kickboxing. Muay Thai, I suppose, is a form of kickboxing, but it is more than that. Not only can the defensive style be quite different with both arms up by your head, but a lot of elbows and knees are used as well. It's a particularly brutal style. Clinching here is a much more bigger thing, as they can spend a lot of time in the clinch. Lots of grabs, throws, and close attacks. Kickboxing has more of blocking kicks, and Muay Thai has more of catching kicks. I mean, there's still blocking and stuff, but knocking your opponent down is big in Muay Thai. And just like boxing and kickboxing, you can win by knockout or points. All of these things have a thing called a technical knockout, which is if you get knocked down too many times in a round, or if the ref stops the fight, or if a fighter looks like they shouldn't go on. Also, often kickboxing and Muay Thai matches are a lot shorter than a boxing match. My favorite films for both of them are the kickboxing films, especially Kickboxer 1 and 2. And characters for this, we have Brad Burns from Virtua Fighter, Zack from Dead or Alive, and 2 DLC characters I don't have, Sagat from Street Fighter, and Fakumram from Tekken. Morangi, sadly the only character who uses this is a DLC character that at the time of writing this isn't even out yet. This is Miarizo. Morangi is a African martial art from Madagascar that is a sport using punches, kicks, elbows, knees, clenching, and throwing. Honestly, it reminds me a lot of Muay Thai. One big difference, however, is music. Music is very important in every fight, not just for the people watching, but also the fighters to get into a rhythm-like trance as they fight. It's bare-fisted, it's bare-footed, and only has 1 round. You can lose by ring out or fainting or being knocked out or getting your ass handed to you so hard they gotta call it off. Like the others, there are judges to declare a winner, and with it only being one round, they can go all out every time. Now, attacking and defense aren't as standardized here, meaning it can look different depending on who's doing it. Savate is a kickboxing coming from France. It is also called French boxing, but don't let that fool you. There are a lot of kicks included. No knees though. And unlike in kickboxing, where a lot of the kicks are with your shin, in Savate, you are landing that kick with your feet. Now, because of this, you have special footwear that you must wear. And while I don't know a film with Savate, it was used in the first UFC, and the dude kicked a sumo wrestler in the head, and it was pretty crazy. Fighters include Katrina from Tekken 7. That's right, from Tekken 7. She shouldn't even be in this video, but I wanted to include her because she was my main in Tekken 7, but she isn't in 8. Karate is a very popular striking martial art using punches and kicks. Unlike the previous one we talked about, belts aren't about championships and are an indicator of how much you've learned. There are many multicolored belts, each indicating a level of mastery within the martial art. Karate is both a self-defense and a combat sport. As a sport, there are a lot of federations and organizations, each with their own rules, but from what I've seen the most is sparring competitions and forms competitions. Sometimes weapons are involved too. Its sparring also varies. Some are closer to boxing rules, but for the most part, from what I have seen, is it's a point system. For the first to hit a legal area gets the point. My favorite films with karate are of course the old Karate Kid films, but also their knockoffs like Sidekicks and No Retreat, No Surrender. Characters include Zin Kujo of Virtua Fighter, Hitomi of Dead or Alive, Ken and Ryu of Street Fighter, although they also have a fictional secondary martial art they practice, and Lydia from Tekken. Taekwondo is a martial art that reminds me a lot of karate. Once again, it is strike-based, and while karate comes from Japan, Taekwondo comes from Korea. Lots of punching and kicking here as well. They also use a belt system. Their competitions are kind of the same, and they also sometimes use weapons. It's a lot like karate, and both are a self-defense and competitive sport. And the competitions are also usually about forms and sparring and can involve weapons. Having been to both Taekwondo tournaments and karate tournaments, they felt almost the same to watch. The biggest difference to me is Taekwondo seems a little faster with more kicks and flash, and karate seems a little more about strength, while still including kicks. Just maybe not as much as Taekwondo, and based on what I've also seen, Taekwondo has so much forms work, and karate does too, but it doesn't feel like as much to me. Characters of Taekwondo include Rig of Dead or Alive, Yuri of Street Fighter, and Haorong of Tekken. Sistema is a Russian martial art. This is about all I can say about it that will cover it because every Sistema school is different. There isn't a standardized version of it. It involves striking and grappling, but it can also involve weapons. And not in the way previous ones did. Karate might involve like swords, and Taekwondo might involve like nunchucks or bangmani. But Sistema can have a knife defense or a gun defense training, and a character that uses it is Marie Rose from Dead or Alive. Kung Fu I put into a separate category, but it could honestly go with a lot of the others because what separates Kung Fu from other martial arts isn't really the style itself, it's just that it's from China. Chinese martial arts are just called Kung Fu. I only made it a separate category because we had so many and it was easier for me to edit it this way. Also, I am sorry if I mess up the pronunciation of any of these. Wing Chun is a very fast-paced, close-range martial arts featuring a lot of quick punches and blocks used to control the movements of the opponents, typically by blocking around the wrist area to move the opponent's arm, then following it with a series of rapid strikes. Blocking and striking are often happening at the same time, and my favorite movie with Wing Chun are the Ip Man films. Those are really good and feature Donnie Yen. And a character who uses it is Leroy from Tekken. Bajie Xuan has a lot of very close range attacks and can include attacking with elbows, hips, and shoulders. They attack with a lot of other places too, but point is they want to get in close and devastate and control you. Characters that do this include Akira Yuki of Virtua Fighter, Kokoro of Dead or Alive, and Leo of Tekken. Ho Xuan is a monkey kung fu. There's a lot of various animal movement kung fus, and this is one of them, and it utilizes jumps and crouches and rolls and attacks similar to how a monkey would fight. My favorite movie with monkey kung fu is Bloodsport, and Eileen from Virtua Fighter uses it. Sichuan is a snake kung fu, which involves pointing your hands in a way that resembles snakehead and then lashing out with your arms using fingers to strike. And I could be wrong, but I think I remember Jackie Chan using it in one fight scene from Drunken Master. And for other characters who use it, we have Christy from Dead or Alive and AKI from Street Fighter. Northern Praying Mantis. Similar to other forms that copy animal-like movements, the Northern Praying Mantis style imitates the way a praying mantis holds its arms. It involves moving the arms very quickly, hitting pressure points, and very quick strikes, and even upper body lunges towards an opponent. The movie I think about when I see this style is actually Kung Fu Panda. There is a literal praying mantis in that movie who uses Northern Praying Mantis style, and that's pretty cool. Characters who use this include Lion Rafa of Virtua Fighter. Zhui Xuan. This is a drunken kung fu where drinking increases your fighting ability. A lot of the movements make it hard to predict what kind of attack is coming, and the stumblings and such are more like deceptive openings for attack that are really meant more as a trap. There are 8 drunken immortals, all with their own style, and to master this, you master the 8 and combine them. The large benefit of this is unpredictability, and my favorite movie with this is The Drunken Master with Jackie Chan. It basically explains all this and shows it in action. Characters who use this include Shunde of Virtua Fighter, Brad Wong of Dead or Alive, and Jamie of Street Fighter. Shaolin Kung Fu has to be one of the most famous, if not the most famous form of Kung Fu. It is both a part of Buddhism as well as a martial art, and while many martial arts do carry somewhat of a religious or spiritual aspect to them, the Shaolin Kung Fu is used by actual monks. There are a lot of fascinating exercises they use to improve their body endurance and their mind's discipline. These monks use a ton of different styles and perhaps belong in an MMA category instead of a Kung Fu one. But as for characters who use it, we have Lei Fei of Virtua Fighter. Tai Chi is something I know as a very slow form of exercise. And it is that. I am not wrong. But it is also a martial art, and things like the form of the movement and the breathing are super important here. Even weapons can sometimes be integrated as well. Characters who use Tai Chi include Lei Fong of Dead or Alive and Chun-Li of Street Fighter. Pigua Xuan uses a chop-like motion in its attacks, as if your arms and legs were axes. Lots of controlling your opponent's movement and lots of flowing from one move to the next, making forms very important. The axe-like motion of attacks also adds an element of power to each strike. Helena of Dead or Alive uses this style. Singing Xuan has short-range powerful strikes. Very close quarters kung fu, once again with defending and attacking happening simultaneously, and weapons can also be used. A character who uses this is Elliot of Dead or Alive. Mijang Xuan. This style of Kung Fu utilizes moves from Tai Chi with some deceptive hand movements. Honestly, it looks a lot like Tai Chi, so much so I thought it was, but it is different. It tries to blend power and grace into an art, and a character that uses this is Pai Chan of Virtua Fighter. The next set of ones I'm talking about are grappling based. This doesn't mean that they don't use strikes, often they still do, but it does mean that most of the movement is about grappling or throwing an opponent. Now these are fighting games, so when I show like a sumo wrestler, he may be striking a lot. But that's just because this is a fighting game and a fighting match. In actual sumo wrestling, he's not gonna be hitting the other sumo wrestler, if that makes sense. Up first we have Aikido, and this features a lot of throws and joint locks. It is said to use an opponent's energy against them to be used as a self-defense. And while it can be used for offense, it is primarily a self-defense to stop an attacker. I don't know that I've seen a movie with Aikido that I like, but if you've ever watched a Steven Seagal film, that is his martial art. Characters who use it include Tamaki from Dead or Alive, who as you can see I don't have because she is a DLC. Aki Jujitsu is a lot of throwing techniques with joint locks and strikes. The main idea is to use an opponent's momentum against them. In many ways it is similar to Aikido, but more aggressive and with strikes. A character who uses it, Aoi Umanakoji, a Virtua Fighter. Judo, once again, utilizing those throws and joint locks, but there are some key differences from the others I just mentioned. For one, Judo is also a combat sport, whereas if you practiced Aikido, for example, you don't really compete. Also, not a lot of striking going on, which makes it different than the previous one. Characters who use it include Go Hinugami from Virtua Fighter, and Paul Phoenix of Tekken. Pro wrestling is very different from wrestling in like college or the Olympics, for example, as pro wrestling is a staged entertainment show. Not that other martial arts can't be staged, but pro wrestling is openly staged. This is not to say that the wrestlers aren't wildly talented, they are, but it's more of me saying it's kind of like an acting and stunt work thing more than it is a martial art thing. Still a lot of fun to watch though, and it features lots of grappling and large stunts like jumping off ropes into your opponents. Characters who use this include Wolf Hawkfield of Virtua Fighter, Bass and Tina Armstrong of Dead or Alive, Zangief of Street Fighter, and Armor King of Tekken. Lucha Libre is also pro wrestling like we just discussed, but there are some differences, although they can be a package deal. For one, there's lots of masks. Luchadors, as they are called, wear masks, and while you might sometimes see masks in pro wrestling, in Lucha Libre you see it all the time. Also, there's high-flying acrobatics. Don't get me wrong, pro wrestling also has that, but it just seems far more prevalent and important here. Lots of flashy moves, kicks, flips, and it is more prevalent in Mexican culture. The talent in some of these moves is beyond incredible, and characters include El Blaze of Virtua Fighter, La Mariposa of Dead or Alive, and King of Tekken. Then we have sumo wrestling. This is a Japanese wrestling where two very heavyset men grapple each other, both attempting to throw the other out of the circle. It only counts if it's any part of the body that isn't the bottom of their feet. Unlike most martial arts where you want to be as fit as can be, in sumo you want to be as heavy as can be, usually meaning fat. Also, I think this is the only one we have discussed where women aren't allowed to participate. There is a sumo wrestler in Bloodsport, although that won't really give you a representation of the rules of sumo. Characters include Taka Arashi of Virtua Fighter and E Honda of Street Fighter. Next up is our MMA section, and MMA just stands for Mixed Martial Arts, which in short means a combination of two or more martial arts together. And we will start off with just, I guess, MMA, which is the sport used in the UFC, the Ultimate Fighting Championship. MMA combines multiple martial arts, usually a striking and a grappling one, but sometimes more than one. And while it does have rules, there is still a lot more you can do in MMA than, let's say, boxing, for example. Knees, elbows, throws, etc. You can do all that. There are still some things you can't do, like you aren't allowed to grab fingers to manipulate joints unless you grab 3 or more fingers at once, and biting's not allowed, like things like that. So there are still rules. Characters that use MMA include Sarah Bryant of Virtua Fighter, Mila of Dead or Alive, Luke of Street Fighter, and Azucena of Tekken. Vale Tudo was the predecessor to MMA, a competition sport known for having very little rules. It is said that it has no rules, but that's not really true. A few things like eye gouging or fish hooking were still not allowed. However, there was like no weight classes, there was many different styles used, and from what I understand, it started this way, but over time it's basically the same as MMA now, with the same rules to be safer. Of course, that makes some people happy and some not happy, and it is big in Brazil. So like old UFC, which is I enjoy watching far more, is a vale tudo, but new UFC would not be. And Vanessa Lewis of Virtua Fighter uses it. Combat Sambo is a Russian martial arts sport. It is a martial art that incorporates many other martial arts such as judo and kickboxing. And while Sambo can be a sport, Combat Sambo is specifically one created for the military. It is basically the same as the sport Sambo, but with less rules for maximum efficiency. And fighters who practice it include Bayman of Dead or Alive and Sergei Dragunov of Tekken. Jeet Kune Do, if you've seen any Bruce Lee film, then you have seen this style, as he was the inventor of it. Now, well, for sure it has a very specific look to it, it can actually look very different, and that's because Jeet Kune Do is the style of do whatever works for you. That being said, I often see it used with like a lot of footwork, quick punches, and kicks, with a stance for your leading foot forward, and blocking that often takes place at the wrists. So yeah, it can look different, but mostly I've seen it the way Bruce Lee does it. Watch a Bruce Lee film and see it in action. Let's see, what is my favorite Bruce Lee film? Probably Fist of Fury is my favorite of that. Characters who use this include Jackie Bryant of Virtua Fighter, Jan Lee of Dead or Alive, and Martial Law of Tekken. Pancratium. This is a really old one dating back to Greek Olympic Games with lots of striking and wrestling, and it's basically just ancient MMA. Characters include Jeffrey McWild of Virtua Fighter, and Marissa of Street Fighter, and her hair is even shaped like a gladiator helmet, so that's cool. Aikido and Kopo Jitsu. Now, Aikido we already went over, but Kopo Jitsu is a very old art of breaking opponents' joints. Often purposefully bone breaking and joint breaking is frowned upon in competitions, but since Anna and Nina Williams of Tekken are assassins, seems like a reasonable thing to use. Last off, we have some unpredictable styles. These are styles that are good for keeping your opponents guessing. Something like Drunken Kung Fu could have also fit here. Up first we have kickboxing and breakdancing. Kickboxing is a real thing. Breakdancing is a real thing. And while breakdancing isn't a martial art, rhythm can be important to martial arts, and the character who uses both of these together as one style is DJ of Street Fighter. Ninjutsu is less of a martial art and more of the methods used by historical and fictional ninjas. A samurai was an honorable warrior who would face you head on, and a ninja is basically the opposite. It's all about using stealth and deception and using whatever means and whatever tools to defeat your opponent, honorably or not. And often, it's about not having to fight your opponent altogether. Historically, ninjas were spies, scouts, or covert mission specialists. In recent times, they've also been depicted as assassins. Ninjas use a variety of tools and weapons, and will use any means possible to complete their mission. That means it's less of a martial art and more of a use anything or any tool you can, including martial arts. Some characters include Kasumi, Ain, Ryu Hayabusa, Hayate from Dead or Alive, all of those are from Dead or Alive, Kimberly of Street Fighter, and Raven and Yoshimatsu of Tekken. Capoeira is a very fun martial art to watch. It somewhat looks like a dance, and once again rhythm is important and music is as well. This was practiced by Brazilians, and a lot of moves are deceptive. Even the martial art looking like a dance makes it deceptive as to what is coming. There's this really cool fight in Undisputed 3 with a capoeira fight, and fighters include Alina of Street Fighter, Eddie of Tekken, also Christy of Tekken, who for some reason isn't in the newest Tekken, but who I think of when I think of this style. Anyway, that's all I got for you. Some movies I recommend for seeing lots of various styles are Bloodsport, Undisputed 2 and 3, Also watching classic UFC has a lot of like various styles competing against each other as well, and that's cool. Let me know your favorite style, or if you want me to go like far more in depth on any one of these, or if I should make a sequel where I talk about like Soul Calibur's weapon styles.